people always want to know, what is it that's your driving force? What is it that you come back to all the time? And it's most definitely my Catholic faith and that foundation that has allowed me to go through this journey. You know, I wasn't the happy, chirpy, joyful person I am today as a young person. You know, I didn't initially see that God had a great plan. And I went through a lot of questions. You know, why me? Why not my brother and sister? Why am I the only one of my friends who's different? How would God allow this to happen? I went to my parents on a regular basis to look at them and ask them, you know, why did God make me this way? I would say that almost regularly. And you know, my mom was just this profoundly spiritual, religious, amazing, grounded person who would reassure me with, you know, be patient, Jessica. God has a great plan for you. Now, trying to teach patience to a toddler or a 5-year-old or 6-year-old who has all these questions, that's almost impossible. So being patient wasn't something I could necessarily do. So I was still very angry and frustrated. And you know, some people who, I like to say that grief was a part of my life in the way that I had to grieve not having arms. My parents had to grieve the child that they had instead of what they had planned to have. But as a young person, you know, I still got picked on in school, and I still had a hard time with being different and being stared at, isolated, singled out, all these things that happen when you are so different that everyone notices. It made it very tough at some moments growing up in a public school, and while I had wonderful friends and a wonderful foundation, it still was difficult. And that's where, you know, I think my conversations with God started to originate out of these wonderful support from my family, who was my mom's family, very devout Catholics. So I was given that exposure as a young person, going to CCD, becoming an altar server, doing all these things that helped me to become a strong Catholic woman and understand that there's something more to this life. There was always the question of being enough. And when you're a young person, at a certain point when I was just this very confident young girl, you know, despite not having arms, and then there comes a point when you start to use others around you to compare yourself. All young girls go through it. It's like, you know, you feel like you have to be like all the other girls, wear the same clothes, do the same things. And there's a lot of social pressure. And so during those times, it made me feel not enough. It made me feel like my not having arms, you know, and then I later came to realization that I am enough, that to Him we are enough. And it's amazing how I woke up with that phrase one day. I literally prayed to God one night. I said, I want to put something on a t-shirt. And I woke up the next morning inspired with this phrase, to Him you are enough. But it's this message that we all struggle with being enough, but we don't know that to Him we are enough, and we're more than enough. And so for me, when I was 14 years old, I decided to give up fake arms. I wore them to school every day. And I thought, you know, maybe this is what society's saying I need to do, but I know I'm enough without. And so the first day of 8th grade, I was 14, first day in Tucson, Arizona at school, because we moved from a small town, Sierra Vista, to Tucson. And I was walking to the school bus without my fake arms, and I had this like empowered sense of self and sense of, you know, I am enough. And it was the moment that changed my life, because I walked on the bus and I promised myself I would never again wear them. To this day, I haven't put those prosthetic arms on. Perseverance in faith is, I mean, it's incredible how, if you can persevere through those difficult times, through those questions, through those doubts, in the end, it's a wonderful way that Christ will work through you to strengthen you in ways that if you didn't have that hardship, maybe you wouldn't have had that kind of faith and that kind of trust. The way the Guinness World Record reads is the first woman without arms to fly. And I came with a medal as well, which I was so excited to give to the Pope. Pope Benedict XVI was at the Vatican when I was traveling from Milan, Italy. I received the Guinness World Record medal, and I'd never been to Italy before. My family was there with me, my brother, my mom, and my sister, and we're like, we're going all the way to Italy, we have to go to Rome, right? It's a Catholic thing to do. Go to Rome, go to the Vatican. And everyone is welcome to the papal blessing in St. Peter's Square on Wednesdays. My brother sees this medal around my neck, the Guinness World Record medal, and he says, how would you like to give that to the Pope? And I was like, I would love to, but how on earth are we gonna get to the Pope? And he said, well, let's go see what we can do. And he leads me over, I have the medal around my neck, to the guard, the first guard we see. He doesn't speak English, but my brother explains to him by pointing to my medal and saying that I want to give this to the Pope. And he says, well, wait one moment. He comes back 25 minutes later. We are headed up around the barricades to the stage. My sister and I were the last to greet Pope Benedict after the papal blessing. And she's holding my shoe. I'm holding the medal on my right foot, hopping on one leg, and bring this medal up to Pope Benedict. And I said, I would like you to have this medal. And lo and behold, a couple years later, I found out that he was a former helicopter pilot. So we had to share this aviation connection. I had no idea. But it was such a special moment to know that just, somehow there's divine intervention that allowed that to happen. Our Catholic faith is for all ages, and the young people need to have that strong faith. That was what was so special about the National Catholic Youth Conference, is that I was going in there and very relatable to so many of them who grew up with the Catholic faith, and just really being proud to be Catholic, really sharing the journey of self-acceptance to that statement, to Him you are enough. That message for our young people is that our faith is not just for the older audience, it's for every single one of us, no matter, and we have to live it out in our lives. So many of them who came up to me inspired me for their young, youthful wisdom of their Catholic faith, that it was so humbling to see that, and such a blessing to see in some of these young people. It's not the exception. There are people with profound Catholic faith and living it out every day, and they're young people and doing that, and we need to have more. So let's, together work harder to make that aware and make people aware in the world. I think my favorite part of the Catholic faith is definitely the power of the Eucharist. I mean, can't get any better than that, in my opinion. It's just incredible. Obviously, it shocked me when I heard that not all Catholics feel like it's the real flesh and blood of Christ. I was just like, I had no idea. Because that was as real from the moment I had my first communion, It's something very special that we have that no other faith has, and that's just, I can go to the Eucharist feeling like my whole life is falling apart and then come out of the Eucharist feeling like everything's going to be okay. And that's what is so powerful, is that we have that wonderful gift of the Eucharist.